Uncle Mark.
Hello.
It is a particular time of year, and, Halloween is in the air, and part of that brew is the witches.
Part of that brew is brujeria.
Ooh.
See?
Yeah.
What?
Muy bien.
Well, and so...
You're talking in funny talk.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Speak American, goddammit.
That's right.
It's Halloween. You speak American. Just like Jesus done.
So, Uncle Dan, I think you have, which witch to talk about, which us?
Yes. It is October, and that means it's fall. Here, anyway. Obviously, in Australia, it's April. So, yes, I do want to talk about witches, it being the witching time of year. Now, to be clear, I'm not going to talk about 20th and 21st century quote-unquote witches. For that cauldron of steaming poo, you can feel free to listen to my bit on Wicca from episode 128. You may be saying to yourself, I don't remember a segment on Wicca, but that's just because that episode ended with Uncle Mark talking about the Anthill Kids, and we were also traumatized.
Oh my God.
The entire episode.
I forgot that.
So
Sorry, everybody.
I did, in fact, do that, so you can go and listen to it and just stop before the end.
Yeah,
Please
don't.
stop before the last segment.
But no, the witches I want to talk about are the old school witches, the sorceresses, the diviners, the casters of spells, and one very special witch who foretold the future with astounding accuracy. Right?
My theremin ran out of air.
That'll happen.
It's a
You need to
Scottish
get-
theremin.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
realize
exactly.
that
You need to
theremin was
get
a
a-
wind instrument.
Oh, boy. Well, okay, so the concept of witchcraft goes back a long way, and I'm talking ancient Egypt here. I'm talking Babylonia here. I'm talking thousands of years ago. As a matter of fact, part of an Akkadian witchcraft ritual is literally chiseled in stone in the Code of Hammurabi.
Oh.
Don't at me about the pronunciation. Which is a Babylonian text from about 2000 BCE. The Code of Hammurabi deals a lot in sort of social issues, how contracts should work, how much to pay an ox or a surgeon, and if somebody casts a spell on somebody else, how to tell if it was right for that person to have done that.
Wait, you have to pay the ox?
The driver.
Oh, sorry.
Ox driver.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
So anyway, this is a quote from that Code of Hammurabi. Quote, if a man has put a spell upon another man, and it is not justified, he upon whom the spell is laid shall go to the holy river. Into the holy river shall he plunge. If the holy river overcome him and he is drowned, the man who put the spell on him shall take possession of his house. If the holy river declares him innocent and he remains unharmed, the man who laid the spell shall be put to death. He that plunged into the river shall take possession of the house of him who laid the spell upon him. Pretty foolproof when you think about it.
Yeah, I'm just glad I don't live in ancient anywhere.
And what
Right.
else floats? A duck.
Oh, we'll get to the duck.
All right.
Yeah. We're not there yet. But this was a pretty good method of determining things, unless you don't believe that rivers know what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, if the rivers don't know what's up, then suddenly witchcraft becomes a very dangerous game. Anyway, this passage is interesting because it makes clear that the ancient Mesopotamians were idiots and didn't know that when it comes to witchcraft, you're supposed to be throwing that side eye at the ladies. Come on, man.
Yeah.
It's also fascinating to note that the problem Hammurabi had with witchcraft wasn't if it was good or bad in and of itself, but rather if it was deserved or not.
If it was misapplied.
Yeah. So witchery features heavily in the Bible. We've talked about that. It's commonly associated with evil and the devil. Throughout the bad book, witches are condemned and sentenced to die for their sin. Except the part where Saul has the witch of Endor summon the spirit of the dead spirit of Samuel. That witch is cool, I guess. But as for the rest of them, well, Exodus is pretty unambiguous when it says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." And since society still hasn't figured out how utterly nonsensical that book is, accusations of evil witchcraft continue to plague society to this day.
Yeah.
Interestingly, historically, there was a long period in Christianity where witchcraft wasn't taken seriously. The 20th century, you ask? Foolishly? No! Obviously not! Accusations of witchcraft happen all over the world. Mostly women still get attacked for this shit. No, shockingly, the time I'm talking about is actually the so-called Dark Ages.
Really?
For centuries, the church was actually, brace yourselves, kind of reasonable about the idea. As a matter of fact, somewhere around the year 900, the church released Canon Episcopi, who knows?
Yeah.
Which was a passage of church law that dealt with folk beliefs and what the church thought of them. Now, if you had asked me what the Christian take on witches in the year 900 was, I would have been positive that they were terrified of shit of them and probably burned every 20th woman in every village just to be on the safe side.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would have totally said the same thing.
But that's not the case.
Huh.
In Canon Episcopi, it doesn't even believe in witchcraft. It dismisses the idea as a fabrication. And women who called themselves witches, or in this case claimed to be followers of the pagan goddess Diana, weren't really magical. They had just been deceived by the devil into believing that they were magical. That's the church's whole the church's whole take on them was that Satan had taken possession of their minds, and that was bad. And they should probably be kicked out of the town before they trick anybody else into their dumb beliefs. But that they were harmless when it came to magic.
So there was satanic possession and shit, but there wasn't witchcraft.
That's right.
Huh.
There were demons and heretics were of course burned at the stake or whatever, but
All day.
there wasn't such thing as like people who actually had witchy powers. And that was the word on witches in Europe for actually a long time. But you know the church, there's no reasonable position that they can't untake.
That's right.
By the 15th century, people were positively itching to believe in scary magic ladies. That notion bubbled through the land until the 1480s, when a particularly uptight German clergyman named Heinrich Kramer got his panties in a twist about some local young women. He attempted to try them for witchcraft, taking a particular interest, and this is always a good sign, in the sexual proclivities of one of them. But fortunately, the trial was a total bust, and the women were allowed to stay in town. Heinrich, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. The local bishop was so disturbed by the whole affair that he kicked Heinrich out, calling him senile and crazy. So, another point for reason. Hooray! Don't get used to it. After his exile, Brother Kramer decided to write a treatise on witchcraft called Malleus Maleficarum, which sounds like it sounds like the spell that J.K. Rowling tries to cast to stop trans women.
To say that trans women don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it translates something like the Hammer of Witches. In it, he outlines exactly how evil the witches are. He discusses at length how to tell if he or she is a witch. Yes, it was mostly women, but sometimes you meet a guy who looks at you funny, you know? Now, it turns out that even though there was a perfectly scientific method available for establishing witchery involving scales and a duck, our boy Heinrich needed to be more certain than even floating weight comparisons were capable of. So, he suggested a far more reasonable way to sniff out a witch. It's simple when you think about it. It's almost funny that it took this long to figure it out. You just torture and lie to them until she confesses.
Oh.
Yeah.
Doy.
You know what I'm saying? Unless you think that that's just sort of standard Inquisition stuff, apparently it wasn't. Apparently, the top theologians of the Inquisition condemned it as being unethical and illegal. I repeat,
What?
the Inquisition thought that Malleus Maleficarum went too far.
Oh, nobody
Get outta
expected.
here.
Nobody expected that.
Yeah. Boom. Exactly. So, Heinrich's book gained little traction in the church, which is awesome. The problem is that books stick around. Malleus Maleficarum had lots of editions, and once the printing press got up and running, it really got out there. Eventually, it fell into the hands of local magistrates all over Europe, and it was them and not the church that really ran with the idea, leading to the widespread killing of thousands of obviously innocent women.
If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. The printing press was a bad idea.
Right? It's so clear.
So
when
far,
you look
Doug,
at
you've
it.
come out against Halloween and the printing press on this show. Just in one fucking episode.
I am consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All things are bad.
He's our own Dougie Downer.
But here's the thing. I don't want to talk generally. I want to talk about one particular witch, the proto-witch, the witch who became the pattern for all subsequent witches. Without knowing it, this is the woman that you imagine when someone around Halloween says the word witch. This is Ursula Soothtell, better known as Mother Shipton.
Ursula Soothtell?
Soothtell, because she told Sue.
That is the
great name.
coolest name
Yeah.
ever in history.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And not everyone calls her that. Some say Ursula Southtell, but yes, I just chose the ones that I liked, as
Awesome
I did
name. Yeah.
with the story, because they're competing stories. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the one that I like best, and I challenge you to prove me wrong. Anyway, Ursula was born in a cave in Yorkshire, England, around 1488, which was 1 year after that naughty Heinrich wrote his dirty little book.
Unlucky for her, probably.
It turns out fine.
But being born
she-
in the 1400s was the definition of bad luck for everyone.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm living through 2020. Them bitches got nothing on me.
Yeah. Fuck you, Inquisition people.
She was the daughter of one Agatha Soothtell and a handsome devil known as... Oh, no, wait. He was just the devil.
Oh.
So, that'll happen. Ursula was, by all accounts, a precocious little girl, always getting into mischief, which you might expect from the
Classic.
literal spawn of Satan. Anyway, she grew up and married a carpenter named Shipton, which is unfortunate because the name Soothtell was, appropriate.
Yeah.
No one knows how she charmed Mr. Shipton into marriage, but folks theorized that it had to do with some sort of magic, either enchanting him to love her or magically making herself rich. What we do know is that it wasn't through her gorgeous appearance, because she was hideous.
Really?
Oh, the big nose crooked down with pimples, warts, and carbuncles all over, and also in an assortment of disgusting colors. A strange upturned chin. Like I say, she's the witch.
Yeah.
Well, is there an illustration of her you found? Or?
There are several illustrations
wow.
of her.
Look her up.
Yeah, but I mean, basically, it's just if you imagine witch, that's her.
Huh.
But we don't remember her for her looks. The reason Mother Shipton is famous is because she was a prophetess, a soothsayer of epic proportions. And none of this vague could apply to anything Nostradamus bullshit. She was specific, relatively. So much so that she got herself in hot water with none other than King Henry VIII himself.
Oh, boy. If you're a woman, you do not want to cross that man's path.
One guy you don't want to be on the wrong side of the bed with.
Yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. After putting down a rebellion, old Hank had demanded a bunch of traitors be brought to him, including, quote, that witch of York. So she pissed off so many people in Henry's court that Cardinal Wolsey, Henry's close advisor, had a dust-up with her. He was also the Archbishop of York, though he had never actually been there himself. He went and sent some men before him to question the witch. She told the men that Wolsey would see York, but never actually set foot there. Sure enough, Wolsey climbed a nearby tower on his way, from which he was able to see the city, but was recalled to London to answer charges of treason.
Oh.
He died on the way home. Boom! First prophecy fulfilled. Other prophecies about nobles of the time also came true. Famous dudes losing their heads, the rise of Queen Elizabeth, the rise of King James, the fire of London. All of these were predicted, and in verse, no less. But you ain't seen nothing yet. She didn't just make predictions about her time. She saw way into the future. Check out these snippets and see if they don't blow your damned mind. Quote! Carriages without horses shall go, and accidents fill the world with woe. Around the world thoughts shall fly in the twinkling of an eye. Huh? Here we go. Here's some more. Through hills men shall ride, and no horse be at his side.
Well,
Underwater men shall walk, shall ride, shall sleep, shall talk.
Are these for real?
There's more. In the air men shall be seen, in white, in black, in green. I'm not sure what the colors have to do with anything, but men are flying.
well, you have to wonder how much of her prophesying was contaminated by the need to rhyme.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
exactly.
You just-
Yeah, she really got herself into some tight spots.
Yeah.
Fortunately, she clearly didn't feel the need for the verse to be perfect.
Yeah, you try finding something that rhymes with 5G network. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Here's another one. Iron in the water shall float as easily as a wooden boat. And if that isn't enough for you, there's the coup de grace, the icing on the cake, the bit that literally caused panic. After all of those amazing predictions came true, this one caused people to sell their stuff and hide in the forest that is truth. Here we go. The world to an end shall come in 1881. Well, they can't all be winners.
Yeah.
And it may have been a little hysterical of folks to have panicked like that, considering the fact that the guy who sold them the book of Mother Shipton's predictions also admitted to having written them.
Oh, really?
Okay.
That's right. All of those amazing prophecies about the modern world were written as a hoax well after they had happened. In 1873, Charles Hendley confessed to having made it all up.
Oh, thank God. You guys almost lost an uncle there.
Right? And considering that the end of the world was supposed to happen in 81, that gave ample time for people to stop believing in it. But you know how people are. Why give up a good woo just because you know for a fact that it's bullshit?
Well, I want to push back a little bit because I just looked it up, and it turns out that James Garfield was assassinated in 1881.
Oh.
And that was the end of the world?
Well, for him.
For him,
It was. It's true. It was the end of the world for a lot of people.
Yeah,
really.
probably.
So there you go. Of course, Henley was just one in a long line of people who had written prophecies after the fact and attributed them to Miss Ursula. It turns out that it's a lot easier to be accurate in your prognostications if you do them backwards. That's not to say that it's super easy. For example, in some of the really early stuff, the Mother Shipton predictions published only decades and not centuries after her death, there were predictions about, quote, Lord Percy, but then got things wrong, indicating that it was actually about a different Lord Percy. That sort of thing.
Gotcha.
Mother Shipton is the stuff of legends. You can still visit the grave where the cave where she supposedly was born outside of York. It's been so popular as a point of interest for so long that they call themselves the oldest tourist attraction in England.
Wow.
That's a pretty heavy claim for
Yeah.
a country with as much history as England.
With it, such an assortment of henges.
I was about to
Yes,
say.
indeed.
Yeah.
You're various and sundry. And it's made all the more interesting by the fact that Mother Shipton almost certainly was not born there. As a matter of fact, it's entirely possible that no such person ever existed.
Oh.
Henry VIII's letter did mention a witch of York, but nobody actually knows who that was referring to. So there you go. Mother Shipton appeared in countless books. She's appeared in plays, pantomimes. There's even a moth named after her
Oh.
because of the splotches on its wings look like her imagined crone face in profile.
Huh. I was thinking this was going to end terribly with some poor old woman being burned to death, but it turns out there was nothing to burn.
There was nothing there to burn.
Wow.
It seems likely that this was just a nice and somewhat wise. There may have been, a somewhat wise woman who people went to for advice, and her legend sort of grew out of control.
Yeah.
And people wanted to believe magic existed, so they just made shit up.
Or it's a composite character or something like that.
Yes,
So,
exactly. Or maybe she was just entirely fake all along, but then again, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
it's true.
And like that, poof, she was gone.
Well, I looked up her picture, and she is the classic witch.
Yep.
Yeah, she's the very classic witch. And as you were saying, Europe, I'm surprised that Europe went through a, hey, let's not burn witches phase for a while. Because
Yeah, it was just a witches aren't real phase, which is something we should really get back to. We should really look into that.
Yeah.
I don't often recommend the attitudes of the Dark Ages, but that one's one that's worth looking reinvesting in.
Yeah, we talked about Father Grandier and the Witches of Loudun a few episodes back, and that was in the 1630s. So,
Yeah.
as the 17th century Enlightenment was kind of dawning across the rest of Europe, church was still burning up witches.
Yeah, they really went after that with gusto, sort
Yeah.
of after the this time of history.
It became
Well,
all the rage.
It's like bell bottoms, It's
Yeah.
things just these fads just keep coming back and going away. So I get it. I get
It's
it. Well,
fun.
cool. Well, let's fly on out of here.
Yeah, dress like a witch, everybody.